What's up, everyone? It's Brand the Mortgage Man here, and I've helped over 10,000 home buyers in my 22-year career in mortgages, and now I'm here to help you. So if you're a first-time home buyer, you've come to the right place, because in this video, I'm going to show you everything that you do not want to miss as a first-time home buyer when it comes to getting pre-approved and working your way through the home buying process. Here we go. So if you're a first-time buyer, as I said, the first thing you want to do is you want to look at your options for getting pre-approved. And what it means to get pre-approved is you're going to speak to a bank, you're going to speak to a lender, and you're going to find out exactly what you're qualified for when it comes to purchasing a home. Now, I'm not talking about just having a simple phone conversation and telling them everything that you think you know about yourself. That's part of it. But what you're actually going to do is you're going to provide documents to support everything you're talking about. That's your pre-approval process, not your pre-qualification process. Pre-qualification means you don't provide a single thing, and it's really not worth the paper it's digitally printed on, right? You want to go through the proper process, which is getting pre-approved. So what you should expect in that phone call is to discuss your home buying goals. So that's what I do with my clients. Let's say you're one of my clients. The first I'm going to ask you is, what are your goals with the home buying process? And you're going to tell me things about your timeline. Maybe you have a preferred price point, your reason for wanting to buy versus continuing to rent or living with family, right? Everyone has different goals when it comes to the process. And I always like to hear that. And your lender should want to hear what those are, because at the end of the day, we as lenders should be working toward whatever your goal is as a potential home buyer. So that's step one. Step two is you want to make sure you provide all of those items to your lender in a timely manner. If you're looking to buy a property and you've taken the time to have a conversation with a lender, why would you procrastinate with providing what they need? Oftentimes, myself and my team see this, where we'll have a conversation, goes really well with someone like yourself looking to buy a home. You tell us what your goals are. We discuss everything with you. We go through the process of pulling credit, calling you to discuss how everything looks, and letting you know, hopefully, that we can accomplish what those goals are. And then for whatever reason, maybe you disappear, you go ghost, and you don't provide what's needed for us to complete everything for you. Because at the end of the day, our job is to help you, right? We're not helping ourselves. So we want to make sure that we can actually provide you with your pre-approval letter. In order to do that, we need those documents from you. Right? So this is something that's important for you to consider as a first-time home buyer. Now, so I want to go back. Once you actually go through that process and you get pre-approved, something that you want to make sure you ask the lender that you're working with, and if you haven't done this on the first call and they didn't just bring it up naturally for you, is you want to ask if there's any sort of first-time home buyer incentives available. And what I mean by that, are there any sort of down payment assistance programs or grants that are available to help you with that home buying process? First-time home buyers can actually get lower interest rates than individuals who actually own homes already, right? So that's an incentive that you want to make sure is being considered. So a lot of times lenders won't just bring those things up, though. So it's up to you as a first-time home buyer to ask the right questions. And are there any first-time home buyer incentives available for me is a great one. And if you want to learn more about what some of those incentives are, make sure to check out some of my other videos that are specifically about first-time buyer incentives and down payment assistance programs that are available to first-time home buyers like yourself. Now, how would you prepare for this call, right? Because you've had the call, or you're going to be going into this call with a lender, but how are you preparing yourself? Well, just a couple of things to keep in mind. For one, you want to know about your income and your employment, right? That's something that a lender is going to ask you about. So they're going to want to know what your income is. They're going to want to know who you're employed by, right? Are you self-employed, or are you a W-2 employee? If so, how long have you been employed? Ideally, your employment will be for 2 years. Doesn't mean you have to be with the same employer for 2 years, but it does mean we need a 2-year employment history. Now, if you're self-employed, this is important, meaning that you're either 1099, you don't necessarily own the company, but you're not paid with a W-2, right? So there's no taxes taken out. Maybe you're someone like a realtor or a travel nurse, and you get a 1099, and it's up to you to file your taxes and claim whatever your expenses were when you filed those taxes, and then pay taxes on what's left, right? You would be considered self-employed in that case. Or someone that's more self-employed under what you might be defining as self-employed in your head, right? You own a business and you file a business tax return, right? You're self-employed as well. If you're self-employed, you're going to need 2 years of owning that specific business to qualify. So just keep that in mind. You're going to need 2 years of filed tax returns to qualify for a mortgage, right? So that's important. So if your employment is 2 years, it's going to be W-2, 2 years, or tax returns, 2 years, if self-employed, right? So you want to consider that. If you haven't been self-employed for at least 2 years, you probably want to wait until you have been before you start having these conversations with a lender. Or if you've been self-employed for 1 year, and now you're finishing year 2, right? This video is being filmed in December of 2024. So we're rolling into the end of the year. It's going to be coming up to the point where you need to file taxes for 2024. So maybe 2024 was your second year in business. It may be a good time to connect with a lender before you file your tax return to discuss what you're expecting to file so they can give you a general idea of what you should anticipate when it comes to an amount you qualify for. Because a lender, when you're self-employed specifically, I'm not talking about W-2 right now, we're going to average the most recent 2 years of income for you. So if you have a 2023 tax return, which would have been the most recent year you could have filed at this point, and maybe showed $100,000 to you, not your business, right? That's important to consider, meaning the amount after expenses that you paid yourself was $100,000. And now for 2024, you're going to pay yourself $150,000. I'm just making these numbers up. What a lender will do, including me, is we're going to take the $100,000 plus the $150,000, add them together. That's $250,000, and then we're going to divide that in half, which is the 2 years, which gives us an average of $125,000. That's what we'll be using toward qualifying. That's if you're self-employed, and that's why it's important to have at least 2 years in business if you're self-employed. Now, let's say you're self-employed and you've been in business for at least 5 years, the same business, and you want a conventional mortgage. Well, you actually only need 1 year of tax returns, your most recent year, because being in business 5 years or longer shows that you have an established business in the eyes of a lender, and therefore they're no longer going to average 2 years together. They'll take the most recent year of income that you filed, so it'll be 23 right now, and that's what would be used toward qualifying. If you're going to FHA or VA and you're self-employed, you need 2 years regardless of the number of years that you've been in business. So keep that in mind. So we said income, we said employment, assets. Assets are going to be the money that you're using for your purchase. So you need to know how much money you have saved up in the bank, or it can be in a retirement account. You'd be surprised how many people I speak with that say they have no money available for the purchase, and then come to find out they have a 401k or an IRA, and it has plenty of money in it to make a down payment. It's very, very common for someone to use money from their retirement account toward a down payment and closing costs on the purchase of their first home. And that is allowable by the providers of the 401k and IRA. So keep that in mind. You're going to want to know about your credit. A lender is going to pull credit. That's just part of the process, because getting pre-approved for a mortgage, you're applying for credit. And that credit report that a lender pulls is good for 120 days. So if you know you're going to want to buy something within that 120-day window, it makes sense to have the lender pull your credit. And I'm not talking about a soft credit check. You know, lenders will say we can do a soft credit check for you. Problem with a soft credit check is it can't be used to obtain a mortgage. It's good because it gives you the scores and tells you what information would be on a credit report. But at the end of the day, once you go under contract for a property, you're going to need a hard credit inquiry anyway. I recommend that if you're buying within the 120-day window, or you plan to buy within that window, and you know if you're going to be actively looking if you're going to buy, well, it makes sense to have the hard inquiry because it's the single inquiry and it can be used for that next 3-4 months. Right, 3 months to find a property, 1 month to close on is the general rule of thumb, without having to worry about something randomly popping up between the time you have a soft credit check and the hard inquiry is actually made when you go under contract. I just feel like there's too much of a risk in that, and I never like to take that risk for my clients. But you do want to have an idea of what your credit's like. And you know, some of you might go on Credit Karma or some other free credit websites, maybe your bank website, and have a general idea of what you see on there. The problem with that is those scores are generally going to be inaccurate to what a lender pulls. If you want the most accurate scores when it comes to a mortgage, I recommend downloading the MyFICO app, MyFICO. There is a charge for the app, I think after the first 30 days, but you can cancel anytime. And I have no affiliation with this particular app or site. However, it is the most accurate information. You can go on there and you can pick the type of credit you plan to apply for, and it will tell you exactly what the 3 credit scores are. So there's 3 credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. It will tell you exactly what those scores are with each of the bureaus. And a mortgage lender uses the middle of the 3 scores. So if you have a 600, a 700, and 800, for example, a mortgage lender uses the 700. But download the MyFICO app, check it out. Like I said, I think it's free for the first 30 days, and you can always cancel right after that. But that will give you the most accurate score, so you know exactly what a lender is going to be pulling, and there's no surprise. So that way you're not thinking it's 800, lender pulls it, and it's a 600, right? Because that will make a world of difference in what you're able to qualify for, if you're able to qualify at all. So you have your income, your employment, your assets, and your credit. Those are the primary items that a lender is going to be looking at when it comes to qualifying you, pre-approving you to purchase a home. So if you're a first-time buyer, these are the things you want to be prepared with. So if you want to have pay stubs available, you want to have W-2s available, you want to have tax returns, as I mentioned, if you're self-employed, you want to have bank statements if you're planning to use your own money, want to have 401k retirement statements if you're going to go ahead and use retirement accounts. You want to have a general idea of what your credit is. You don't need a copy of your credit report because they're going to be pulling it for you, but you don't want to be scared to have your credit pulled. If you are truly ready to buy, you want to be prepared to actually have your credit pulled by the lender you're speaking with. And you have a 45-day window to have that credit report pulled by more than one mortgage lender where it doesn't impact your scores. It's called the right to shop rule by the CFPB. So if it's for a mortgage inquiry specifically, the multiple inquiries within that window will not impact the scores. Just make sure that it's within a short time frame between one another. But as if you talk to one lender and maybe don't get the warm and fuzzies from them and you want to look at your options with another, maybe the original lender doesn't offer any first-time buyer incentives like I mentioned, and you want to speak to someone who might, well, that's the good time to do it, is early on in the process. Like I said, you do have 45 days for the inquiries, but it's better to, in my opinion, to keep them within a week, just so you don't worry about anything rolling over from 1 month to the next in updated reporting. If you're a first-time home buyer, these are all of the things you really want to consider when you're looking to buy a home. If you want more detail as a first-time home buyer and what you should look out for, make sure to check out the video in my link where it's a longer formatted version of this video with a lot more detail for you. And make sure to subscribe to my channel if you want to just continue educating yourself on mortgages and all things real estate. And I look forward to seeing you soon.